Hello everybody, this is John with Podwurx, and today we are going to go through the installation guide on the F30-f80 Cluster Plus Pod. Let's go ahead and get to the website. Just go to podwurx.com or Google Podwurx. That's Podwurx. And that takes us here. And this is the website. You can scroll around here and learn a little bit more about Podwurx. But for today, we're going to go right to the F30-f80 Cluster Plus Pod. And you'll see that's it right there. This is a little bit of information about the pod itself. You can read through this. There's the price. This is the models that it currently fits that we have confirmed fitment for. And we are confirming fitment for other models. Currently, we have finished and confirmed for the Grand Coupe. Here's some other information, just tidbits about the pod itself. You can scroll down, see pictures of it installed, a little bit more about the way it fits. But here at the bottom is what we're looking for, and that is we're going to download the install instruction guide. And let's go ahead and click on that. And there we go. All right, F30-f80 heads up. Pod, let's see. Okay, so this gives you a good image of what it's supposed to look like when it's installed. But we're going to take a minute and go through the actual installation process, kind of tutorial, if you will. First thing you want to do is pull everything out of the box. Make sure that you have all your parts. The pod itself, there's some hardware, a couple of nuts, there's the screw. There's also now included in the kit a O-ring. And that O-ring is for gauges that are slightly smaller than 52 millimeter. We have found that manufacturers are varying a bit in that 52 millimeter pod sector. So the O-ring will help hold those smaller pods in. All right, let's get started here. We're going to go ahead and pull apart the front vents, and being very careful. This trim piece goes all the way underneath to the very side of the dashboard, and this piece here is pretty small. It's got some clips in it. Be careful that you don't break them. Pull evenly. Then you're going to unplug a connector on the back of that vent. Then pull the pod out of the box and set it on the dash. Make sure that it fits perfectly. We've designed this so that way it is molded directly to the contours of the dashboard. So we want to make sure that that you've got a good fitting pod before you go through all the work of drilling the holes and running all your wiring. Alright, so you have to locate a hole in which to drill the stud. We found that the best way to do this is to use a paint pen, put a little dab of a brightly colored paint on the end of the provided stud, and then slide it down through the hole. When you put it down through the hole, it'll leave a mark on the dash that's going to be the exact place where you want to drill. This makes it easy. There's no measuring, no guesswork in where that hole needs to be perfect. Go ahead and drill the hole, and you'll see here the hole is very small, and that stud is very small as well. We've done that by design. We wanted to make sure that we didn't make the dash look damaged after we take a pod off. In other words, we want a zero impact after the fact. So if you decide you want to take the dashboard or take the pod off the dashboard at any point, sell the car, trade the car in, that it doesn't leave any marks. That happens right here. So that way that's covered up by that trim panel. So you'll never see that hole again if you decide to go back to stock. Now what you want to do is you want to put the stud up through that hole, and you'll see here that our goal is to keep the end of that stud perfectly flush with the opening. And then you can see there's a countersunk hole, and that's for the nut. We want to go ahead and trim out a little bit of this padding, and there's a little bit of plastic behind. There's some reinforcement too that you can pull out. This is going to be really more based on your gauge and not so much on the pod install. If you've got a gauge with a lot of wiring, you're going to want to trim out a little bit more. Making sure that you don't trim past this line right here. Anything beyond this little ridge is going to be visible if you ever take the pod off. So you want to make sure that you leave this section here alone, and only cut inside of these yellow dotted lines that we've shown you here. And you can see here we've already trimmed this out. Our studs all the way through, and you can see it's up at a kind of an angle, which is perfect for the pod and pulling it tight to the contours of the dash. And you can see over here, this is a relatively small wire system for this gauge that we've used as an example. And the reason that we use this is pretty common for a stepper motor gauge. So we've taken some of this out, and you'll see that this now comes up between the crack and the stud as well. And the gauge is particularly made in such a way that on the bottom it's molded with a small ridge that helps keep this trim piece in the dashboard separated, so that way there's no pinching of the wire. Obviously, if you have a gauge such as the snow controller, you're going to have a little bit more gap, and you're going to have a few more wires. You're going to need a little bit more clearance. But otherwise, you can see that that runs up through. We've given quite a bit of clearance in the hole, made that hole kind of elongated, so that way it fits a variety of different wires and locations for different gauges that are on the market. After the wires are run up through the gauge, you're going to want to go ahead and start that 5.5 millimeter nut on the stud. And you can see here it's just started, and we're going to want to tighten that down. Usually just using a socket. You're going to have to use a quality socket. If you use a cheap one, you might find that the walls are too thick and you may not be able to get it tight, but usually finger tight is more than enough. If you need to get a wrench in there or a ratchet, you can, but don't over tighten. You could crack the gauge or the pod and or the dashboard. And then we've gone ahead and added a supplement here. Here we use an example of the snow controller. It's a fantastic gauge, but it is slightly undersized. It's not quite 52 millimeters. So we've provided a O-ring in the kit. They should be black. And that allows you to slide that gauge in with the perfect amount of snugness. And other gauges that might be a little bit small can use that same O-ring. We've found that if there's a few gauges out of the market that are a little large, over 52 millimeters, if they are, you may have to trim out the inside of the pod a little bit to make them fit properly. Otherwise, you may have to put a little bit of force into getting that in. And also the length. There are some we'll say lesser expensive gauges that are a bit long, and some may just be too long for the pod, or you may have to trim back some of the studs on those, or trim out the inside of the pod a little bit, sand it out to make room for those oversized gauges. See here, it's all finished, installed, and we are good to go. You can see it looks like an OEM piece, and that was really our goal. All right, well, thanks a lot. We appreciate you watching our video. Hope it answers a lot of questions and makes you feel a little bit more secure about installing one yourself. They are quite easy if you follow all the steps. If you have any questions, or if you have comments or concerns, please leave them here or contact us. You can reach us at podwurx.com, or you can go to the website and leave us an email or something there. If you'd like to purchase one, they are available, of course, off the website. You can contact us direct, or they are available on Amazon now. All right, thanks so much. If you like the video, please subscribe. If you have comments, comment below. And if you liked it, just hit like.